Wraps are off the Ferrari F80, the most extreme road car Ferrari have ever produced, spiritual successor to the legendary Ferrari F40, and the numbers are going to blow your mind. 1,200 horsepower, 0 to 100 in 2.15 seconds. 2.15 seconds. Let's put that into perspective. That makes the Ferrari F80 the fastest accelerating combustion engine car in the world. Now the Bugatti Tourbillon with the V16 engine, that does 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat. But the F80 deliveries will start before the Tourbillon, so the F80 will get that crown. Again, to put it into some more perspective, the Chiron, back in the day, it did 0 to 100 in 2.4 seconds. Some more perspective, modern Formula 1 cars, now depending on who you ask, it does 0 to 100 between 2.5, 2.4 to 2.9 seconds. The Ferrari F80 is faster accelerating than a current Formula 1 car. That just blows your mind. 0 to 200, 5.75 seconds. Top speed, 350 kmph. Well, to put that properly, over 350 kmph. It also looks suitably incredible, but we will come to that in a bit. I will also tell you right now that even though India has got a couple of wealthy Ferrari collectors with the right pedigree, no F80 is going to come to India. I'll tell you about that in a bit, but we've got a lot to unpack on the Ferrari F80. So don't forget to hit that bell icon, subscribe to the Evo India channel, and let's dive into this mad supercar. Where should we start? Engine, name, lineage. Okay, so the name, F80. Now, if on Instagram you've been following cars and maybe not Viral Biani, it would have come to your notice that an F40 successor has been in the works. And that is this car, the F80. The F40, as the name says, it was built to celebrate 40 years of Ferrari. The F80, it comes 40 years after the very first supercar that Ferrari made, the 288 GTO. And the lineage, if you look at the lineage, if you look at what I saw at Maranello, your jaw will fracture. It'll hit the ground so hard when you look at it. The lineage starts exactly 40 years ago, 1984, when Ferrari unwrapped the 288 GTO. Now that was a proper homologation special. GTO, Gran Turismo Omologato, a homologation special. And for its time, it was one of the fastest road cars, a top speed in excess of 300 kilometers per hour, 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. This is 40 years ago, don't forget. And 272 of those were produced. Next is the car that would chop my left hand off for an opportunity to drive. Actually, well, not left hand, because left hand is required for shifting gears. I chopped my right hand off to drive the Ferrari F40. The F40, it has that quintessential savage supercar shape of the 80s. Also, savage performance. Twin turbo V8 engine in the days when there was no such thing as taming turbo lag. Turbo lag was monstrous. I've never driven an F40. I've seen a few, I've sat in a few, I've never driven an F40. But what people say is that it had hair throttle response, a total absence of any traction or braking assistance, and that made it an exhilarating but also a nerve-shredding driving experience. One day I'll drive one and then I'll happily retire. After that, I'm out of here. Moving on, the F50 that was introduced in 1995. Now, it was Ferrari's first carbon composite monocoque chassis. It used a lot of lessons from Formula 1. It had a naturally aspirated V12. The F40 had a twin turbo V8 engine, and only 349 were made. Of the F40, that was supposed to be capped at 400, but demand was so strong that Ferrari eventually made 1,311. The follow-up was the Enzo with its F1 nose and naturally aspirated V12 engine. It was Ferrari's first real hypercar, fitting for a car that carries the weight of its founder's name, and it celebrated Ferrari and Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance of Formula 1 in that era. And the fifth in this gorgeous, unbelievable lineup of supercars, the La Ferrari, the Ferrari. It was Ferrari's first hybrid with F1 style curve system, making it the fastest and most powerful Ferrari up until that time, and limited to 499 units. And the F80 is a continuation of this incredible bloodline and reflecting the growing number of actually hyper wealthy individuals. The production has been increased to 799 units. All have already been spoken for. In fact, Ferrari did private viewings of the car in Maranello, and some 600 customers went down to have a look at the car. Now, these customers did not just drop 3.6 million euros, that's the ex-factory price in Italy of the F80. They just didn't drop that money. They were invited to purchase the car. This being Ferrari and this being this crazy age that we are living in, you had to be a known collector, somebody vetted by Ferrari to be allowed to purchase an F80. And of course, 3.6 million euros. After that, you put in options, all the options that you want. So 3.6 million is just the starting price. And even in India, there are people with that kind of money, but you can't get an F80 in India. I'll tell you why later on in this video. The launch was in Ferrari's new E building. Now, 4 years ago, the whole dialogue was around how we are going to move straight to electric cars. All the manufacturers were investing, talking about electric cars. That was when this E building came into being. The plans were laid down for it. But now, 4 years later, we all know that nobody, especially in the supercar segment, wants to buy an electric car. And that's why everybody is doing this turnaround. Electric plans have been pushed aside. Ferrari are going to do their full electric car next year, but now it is all about hybridization. So what do you do with that E building? Well, now Ferrari says that E stands for energy, evolution, environment, efficiency. It's all nonsense, really. Anyways, in this E building, that's where Ferrari are going to make their own high voltage batteries and their own electric motors. Also, battery technology is rapidly evolving, and what is current today will be obsolete in 5, maybe even 2 years. Eventually, the LaFerrari or SF90 or 296 GTB, those batteries will go kaput. And what happens then if a battery supplier has stopped making those particular batteries? You cannot stop batteries for 10 years, can you? And so what Ferrari are doing is that they will keep pushing the battery technology, and as new advancements come on stream, they will offer that for fitment within the existing housing in their cars. They're even offering an 8-year extended warranty, which includes replacement of the batteries. So the F80's batteries, now these are 38 kilos lighter, more energy dense than the SF90, but it fits into the same casing. So eventually, if you have an SF90, you will be able to upgrade your batteries to a newer technology. And that's where your hybrid will not go obsolete, it will not become slower over time. In fact, it will only keep getting faster and will keep improving. But what we really care about is the engine. And shocker, it is a V6. Not a V12, not even a hybridized V12, not a V8, not a turbo V8, but a turbocharged hybrid V6 engine. And Ferrari say that this V6 is the pinnacle of their technology today. Formula 1, it uses a turbo V6 engine. Le Mans, the 499P, which won 2 years Le Mans in a row, that also uses the same 120-degree V6 engine that is now being used in the F80. So this is a clear case of technology transfer from race-winning cars to a road car. On its own, this engine makes 900 horsepower. 900 horsepower from this twin-turbocharged V6 engine. Chief Technology Officer Gian Maria Fulgenzi says that everything on this engine is new compared to, say, the 296, but the biggest update is the MG UK, Formula 1 kind of technology. This twin-turbo setup, it uses larger turbochargers, and these are the E-turbos which we're seeing recently in hybrid sports cars, where there's an electric motor within the turbo. So that spins up the turbo quicker, so you can use a bigger turbo, but there is no lag, and there is excellent instant throttle response. It revs to 9,000 RPM. Specific output is 300 horsepower per liter. And the two electric motors on the front axle, the E four-wheel drive, and the rear motor, the MG UK of the hybrid system, that puts out another 300 horsepower. Now, the electrical architecture is the 800-volt hybrid system, and at its core is a 2.3 kilowatt-hour race-derived battery. It has a carbon fiber housing to save weight and completely new cells provided by the same supplier as the Formula One team's batteries. Peak output is 242 kilowatts. That's 49 more than the SF90XX Stradale's battery, and it weighs 38 kilos less. The system is fed by the MGUK that powers the new front axle, and that delivers a maximum output of 284 horsepower. This is also more compact, 36 kilos lighter than the one mounted on the SF90XX Stradale. Also, thanks to that electrified front axle, the F80 has got E4-wheel drive that helps it get proper traction to deliver that 0 to 100 time of 2.15 seconds. And if your head is hurting trying to understand all of the powertrain technology, let me make it explode by talking to you about the aerodynamics. Much is made of flat floors in sports cars and supercars. The F80 does not have a flat floor. This is the underbody of the F80, and it looks like it's been taken out of a Formula One car. It is full of these barge boards, and it's something that has never been done on a road car to reach a level of downforce again never before seen on a street legal car. 1050 kilos at 250 kilometers per hour. The underfloor shapes the entire architecture of the car, which is designed around aerodynamics. The front section that has been reduced by 25 centimeters on each side to again improve aerodynamic efficiency and create a new airflow management around the cabin. This means the driving position, it has been rotated by 8 degrees, the pedals are 80 mm higher, and that gives a kind of single-seater driving experience. In fact, Ferrari say when their Formula One drivers tested the F80, they said that this now feels like the cockpit of a Formula One car. The underfloor starts at the front of the car, completely re-engineered around a triplane wing and S-duct. It's inspired by the one found on the 499P Le Mans winning race car. Now, the front wing, that delivers a downforce of 460 kilos at 250 kilometers per hour, which is race car territory. And at the rear, there is an active wing. It's a movable wing. It moves up by 200 millimeters. It can also tilt depending upon conditions, and that delivers 590 kilos of downforce at 250 kilometers per hour. Now, to maintain this kind of aerodynamic efficiency, and if you've been following Formula One and all the challenges with the ground effect cars, the challenge is to keep the body level, to keep the ride height constant. And for that, they've used race car suspension on it. The supplier is Multimatic, who supplies the same suspension to the GT race cars. Now, these dampers are designed around aerodynamics. They feature horizontal shock absorbers and springs to provide for space for the airflow, and this is an active suspension system. The brakes, these are obviously carbon composite brakes, but these are what Ferrari are calling CCMR. R stands for racing. Now, these brakes have been taken from the 296 Challenge race cars, and they ensure shorter braking distances. 100 kilometers per hour to 0 in 28 meters. 200 kilometers per hour to 0 in 98 meters. And these brakes give higher repeatability and almost 3 times the life cycle of regular carbon ceramic discs. And of course, we have to talk about the styling. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. I think it looks phenomenal. I've seen it in the flesh. I've seen the bare carbon chassis in the flesh. They all look like works of art. Now, obviously, you can form your own opinions on the styling. I'll just give you a few thoughts of mine. Now, this shape, it keeps in step with Ferrari's recent trend for anthropomorphic designs, where there is no defined eyes and mouth, so that human face to cars, that's not there. The front, it has this whole series of wings and ducts and passages. There's this black mask which hides the headlamps. It sort of looks like a UFO, like a spaceship, brings what design head Flavio Manzoni says is a somewhat mysterious effect. He also says that he wanted to do something absolutely futuristic and disruptive. We didn't want to get carried away with a nostalgic or continuity idea. We wanted to really look to the future to do something absolutely innovative and unexpected. I think they've hit the nail on the head. Now, obviously, you will have your thoughts on the styling. We would love to hear about it in the comments. But I don't think there's any bad angle on this. And the wheels, if you don't like the silver surround on the wheel, those wheels are carbon wheels and you can get it in full carbon without the silver surround also. And of course, Ferrari have their tailor-made program where you can do whatever you want with it really. You can do whatever colors. You can just go wild with it. If you have excess money lying around, you can just throw that Ferrari with their tailor-made program. Now the proportions are extreme. A very narrow cabin, wide shoulders and a wide track. And they claim it gives the F80 the effect of a single-seater while not giving up on passenger room. Now to give it that narrow cabin, the seats are brought together by 50 mm, so they're 50 mm closer. But so that the passenger and driver don't rub elbows, the hip point is slightly offset, so your elbows will not touch. I sat inside the cabin of the F80. It is snug. Now those doors, obviously those butterfly doors which are inspired by the Enzo, they look really, really cool. But when you shut it, it does give you that sense of being like in a fighter jet cockpit. And the design of the entire cabin is centered around the driver. So you tend to forget that you have a passenger sitting next to you because the cockpit is like all enveloping. It is really cool, very snug. There is hardly any space inside it. There is space for a wireless charger, so you can put your phone there. Behind the seats, there is a small suitcase that can fit, which can probably take your toothpaste and underwear, but that's about it. But obviously, if you're buying a Ferrari supercar, you'll obviously have like a Puro Swange following you with your suitcases. The steering wheel, this is the new design for the steering wheel, and gone a lot of those capacitive buttons that we have criticized in the past. You now get like proper buttons, so that is a step up. And the digital cluster that moves with the steering column, so you always get good visibility. The silhouette, it rests on two elements that Ferrari have called end plates. This, they say, is a bit of a homage to the F40, which had a very geometric, very precise shapes characterized by grid-like vertical cuts. Manzoni says the F40 is one of the most beautiful supercars in history. I completely agree. The rear is characterized by a ridge that narrows, it tapers at the rear and is marked by 6 air vents. Obviously, that's 6 relating to the 6-cylinder engine. And if you're wondering that the red crackle finish for the cylinder covers are not there anymore, it's actually there. But because the engine is mounted so low down, you can't see that red finish of the engine. Above the engine is the turbo and the e-motors, and all of that packaging is on top. But the engine is mounted really low down to give it that low center of gravity. They say they're positioned as low as possible to the floor. And the chassis. Now this is a multi-material chassis. It has got a carbon fiber monocoque, but it also uses titanium, it also uses aluminum, and it is an asymmetric carbon fiber chassis. This is something that Ferrari claims is unique in this entire automotive segment. The driver's side is wider than the right-hand side for the passenger, and they did this to reduce the cabin dimensions, to improve aerodynamics, to reduce weight. And compared to the LaFerrari, the chassis, it is 5 kilos lighter, but it has a 50% increase in torsional stiffness. And it is this chassis design that is going to preclude the F80 ever being sold in India. Because of this design, the car can only be made in left-hand drive. It's not going to be made in right-hand drive. None of those 799 units is ever going to be done in right-hand drive. And in India, you can't buy a left-hand drive car. And that's the reason why the F80 will probably not be sold in India. You'll probably have somebody bringing an F80 to India, maybe on car name, maybe on display. We might see one on Instagram pages sometime in the future. As of now, F80 not coming, but what do you think of Ferrari's new supercar? The 6th in a lineage that starts with the 288 GTO, the F40, the F50, the Enzo, the LaFerrari, and now the F80? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for watching.